stream button, so we should see it pop up in a few seconds. I hope. All right, it says the stream is healthy. We'll see it momentarily. A few seconds. All right, I hear sound, no echo. So it is time to begin. Aloha, Lohali signing in with this week's Manga Club titled Hype in the Fans. And we have our very first super special guest, and that is G from the channel SimplyGee. If you would say hello to everybody.
Hey everyone, I'm G, as most of you probably know. I'm really excited to be on the live stream today, and I hope you guys enjoy what I have to say.
And I know that we will, because you are one of the most thoroughly researching people, not research people, but one of the most thoroughly researching people who calls me out anytime that I make a mistake on my channel, and I actually appreciate that, because it forces me to curate my content better. So thank you very much for that. And obviously we have my co-host, Mr. Graves. Say hello.
What's up, guys? Jin here.
And basically that sounds about right. Everyone knows where to find him, because he's here with me every single week. So today we're discussing how hype affects manga, and where does hype really come from? So G, kind of what's your thoughts on where does hype come from, what affects hype, and we'll just give a brief overview of it really quick for us.
So when I brought up this subject of hype and fans, I was obviously definitely talking about the manga community and us as manga tubers and our place within that sort of cycle. Hype, of course, is probably everyone knows, is sort of the buzz or the excitement or the energy or the word of mouth about a title that will influence, generally positively, the audience. So usually it gets people excited for a new title coming out or something that's already been out and maybe not very many people know about it. So in a sense, it's both a positive and a negative thing, because it does directly influence usually the audience, whether they realize it or not. So within this community, obviously us showing off or talking about a lot of different titles, we're excited about a lot of different things. It means that there's just a large bombardment of hype from very different series, from a lot of people, and it can be really hard to sort of figure out your place within that type of system and that side of the community, and to figure out whether or not you're enjoying something because you actually like what you're reading, or you're enjoying it because it seems like everyone else is, so you have to. So that was one of the big things that I wanted to talk about on this live stream, because I do think it pertains to manga tubers, especially because even though obviously we're a smallish community, we're all pretty close and we're all very regular people, as being on this platform, we do have more of a voice than I think some people realize, and we do have a lot of people listening to our recommendations, our opinions, and so we do have more influence than is more or most manga fans would tend to regard themselves as. So even like a comment that don't really mean to be like hyping up something can have that effect on somebody who's watching, especially if you have a younger like people watching. It's really interesting to see how this cycle and how manga tubers influence other manga tubers as well. So
that was so concise. Awesome. That was, again, when I say that G has probably some of the best writing in the comments, hands down, this is an example of that, although verbally instead of manuscript, I guess, even though manuscript isn't typing. And I completely agree. I think as manga tubers, we help build up and hype series that we love, and we don't take a lot of time to consider what we're doing because we see ourselves as average people. Again, everything that you said was horribly on point. I don't even think I could add anything. That's it. Live stream's done. We're over here. We're done. We're done. But realistically speaking, we each hype something up unintentionally, or we avoid something because of the hype behind it. I mean, you and I have a series. I have one series. You have another series that we both specifically mentioned before this live stream started. And Graves, do you have any series that you don't enjoy because it was hyped up too much?
Not really. Usually with me, it cuts off time before I read it. Usually if the hype train is super high, if I haven't already gotten into the series or anything, then it's kind of like I won't get into it for a while.
I mean, so you let the hype cool down before you dive in?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. All right. All right. And I guess, well, G, do you want to start off with what hype you kind of, which manga you don't like because of the hype, or do you want me to start off on my hour-and-a-half long rant and just take up this whole stream?
I'll talk about mine because I think a lot of people know the one that I'm going to bring up. And I do want to mention a couple others, not necessarily pertaining to me, but that I have seen sort of this trend with in the manga community. So my personal series that I do not like, that I really think falls into this bubble of hype, is Bakuman. I'm sure anyone who's watched my videos before, especially like Q&A videos where there's questions like, what's your most hated manga? That this does not come as a surprise. And it is a series that, of course, thanks to the popularity of Death Note, a lot of people were watching or anticipating the Oba and Obata next title, because obviously that previous series, their first series together, was very, very, very popular. A lot of people really like it. Bakuman is that series. It was a follow-up. A lot of people love it. Again, it's about the manga industry, and it's sort of this story about like beating the system and becoming, reaching your dreams. And in actuality, again, I make no secret of it, I really don't like Oba's writing. It's very, very sexist. It's definitely got genius complexes all through it. And Bakuman, being a romantic comedy and like not slice of life, but like story about manga, it has a lot of his ticks within it that just make it unreadable for me. Do not like it. But a lot of people do, and a lot of people, I think, forgive a lot of its problems, not just with, like, regardless of whether you think it's sexist or badly written, a lot of the middle part is very, very slow paced. It's incredibly too long for what it is. But I think a lot of people actually forgive its sins, as it were, because of the art in it, because of Obata's illustration work within the manga, because of course he is a very talented artist, as I think we all know. But for me, like, art doesn't trump storytelling. I do prefer to have a well-written story as well as nice, pretty art. And so whenever you see like larger manga discussions or people's collections, Bakuman is almost always inevitably there. Whether it's the entire series or just a couple volumes, people buy the box set, and it's something that people really, really, really love. And they're like, if you want a manga about manga, check this one out. It's so great. It's amazing. Which for me, like, reading it, it's very, very, like, it's a slog to get through. It's very wordy. And I come from, before manga, I was reading 3 novels a night, so I can read. Like, don't get me wrong, but it is a very densely written series, which really makes it, I think, difficult for people to necessarily get into, especially if you're a casual reader. Plus, of course, as I said, all those other myriad of issues. But because it is something that within the manga community, you like reading about manga, it seems like an easy fit. It seems like something that a lot of people would enjoy, especially if you're wanting to know about the Shonen Jump cycle and how manga is made. There is a lot of other manga about manga. It's not the only one out there. I would personally recommend something like I'll Give It My All Tomorrow, which is very, very good, much shorter and very interesting. But it is, of course, it's a shonen series. It appeals to a lot of people. It's got that energy to it. And so when I wanted to read it, I actually came to the series via the anime first. I had seen the first season of anime and thought it was all right. And then everyone's like, you have to read the manga. You have to read the manga. And I did, and really didn't like it very much. Again, the middle part was very, very slow. A lot of the characters are not treated well at all within that series, which is not great for like a fun sort of, just friendship type manga. I didn't appreciate that. And by the end, I just felt like it had been such a long slog to get to something that I wasn't all wholly invested in by the end of it. Yeah. And I think a lot of people do share my opinions with a lot of these things, especially in regards to Oba's sexism in his writing women. but it's not something you see discussed all that often because it is such a popular manga. A lot of people get very offended that you don't like this series. And so it's something that, you discuss with other like-minded people, possibly in private, maybe in a public setting, but it's not, if I was going to say anything was overhyped, it would definitely be that series, merely for the fact that they had a previous hit, before, which was Death Note. And I think we're seeing a lot of people realize now the failure of that idea and of like hyping something up so much as it's coming out or as it's in production with Platinum End, because I know a lot of people, I haven't read it, so I can't give any comment on the quality of that work, but I know that a lot of people who do like Bakuman, who do like Death Note, really don't like Platinum End. And it's that the expectation going in that you will like it, and then that fall of disappointment when you don't. And then of course people stick to things. They want to finish something because, well, everyone else likes it, I should like it, why don't I like it? Which is a huge problem in the community. It's, again, not for me personally, but I know that Tokyo Ghoul had a huge hype around it when it was being released, the first set, the first series, and of course Re is also being released right now. And so many people talked that series up. It was the greatest thing ever. They loved it. It's wonderful. It's so dark. It's amazing. It's basically a seinen. It's not a shonen. The same stuff you hear over and over and over again, the same arguments, the same things and ways to encourage people to read it. And then you got a lot of people, by the time it got to volume 12, 13, and 14, who were like, well, it's good, but it's not like the best thing I've ever read, or I like it, but I wouldn't necessarily read this again. And that is definitely a falling of hype, because if you fall into hype, your expectations are that much higher, so you do feel that much more disappointed when it doesn't work out for you. So I've said my piece. I've talked way too long.
Please, I talk a ridiculously long time. For me, I am also on the never thought I'd say this, but on the anti-Oba train. That's a weird sentence. I am very, very, very much against Death Note. And I overhype my hatred of it, obviously. I don't think it's that bad of a series. However, I do think it does have a few inherent problems. Mainly, it was built up to be the greatest, shonen, the darkest shonen of all time, the whatever you want to call it. And it was the first half. I will admit, the first half was very good. But I'd come from reading, long slugs like Monster, 20th Century Boys. Like, I was used to reading really, really deep, detailed stories that made you look back and examine the story again and again, whereas Death Note, really what you see is what you get, and later on in the story they kind of really handed it out like they basically were like, hey guys, here's a little bit of here's the information for you. They spoon fed it to you. But it was a very beautifully drawn series, and I don't think I can say that Obata's a terrible artist. I think this is, for me personally, it comes down to just Oba's writing style. And I will 100% agree. I think that Oba, if he were to stick with stories centered specifically around boys, it would be a little bit easier for him, because I don't think he understands how to write a competent female character. Because you take a look at Death Note, what was her name? Misa, terribly written character.
Oh god, that poor girl, so many bad things happened to her for no reason. She doesn't deserve any of it.
No,
and as the audience, we're framed to feel like she's an idiot and we shouldn't like her, when she's done literally nothing wrong insofar comparatively to Light, who's the character we're supposed to be following and rooting for. But because he thinks she's an idiot, we're supposed to think she's an idiot. It's the same for his mother, same for his sister, same for the FBI agent. Every female character who's ever shown up in an Obata series, whether they're romantic interest, whether they're family member, whether they're friends, they are just absolutely.
They're meant to look pretty, but not be heard. It's the old it's 1800 expression, it's better to be seen and not heard. And Oba definitely really loves that idea. Obata, on the other hand, he draws. Like I said, if it's Obata's drawings, like Hikaru no Go was done very, very well. But that again, completely different author. I think it comes down to author. But I think Oba just tends to create series that are overhyped, and they're on the surface they look complex. They look detailed, they look complete, and you're like, man, these series are great, and then you dive deeper into it and there's nothing else beyond the surface. What you have is what you get. Whereas, again, I'm not going to hype up Monster and 20th Century Boys any more than people always have, but those series, you read them through the first time, you go like, wow, I missed something. And I think it comes to a character balance. But sexism in manga is a discussion for a completely different day, because we could go on for hours, and I don't know if you've heard my rant. I don't know if I've even gone on a rant about it, but one thing that I hate is fan service in shonen and manga, but that's, again, I will go on my own complete rant about that, because I think it is. Anyway. By the way, Amaskio J says hello, and so does Shay Geeks Out. We have Elias and pause him. We got a bunch of people in here loving the stream.
Nice turnout. Thanks, guys. Thanks for supporting me.
That's, again, because of how long you've been in the community and how much effort you put in. You don't need hype built around yourself, because you are the hype. So, Graves, is there anything that you heard that you kind of want to point out or comment on?
Oh man, maybe they should split back up and Oba just fade into existence, and then Obata just continue forward by himself.
Get rid of Oba,
because both of you guys' series were both series that were written by him.
But is there? So we kind of mentioned, I kind of asked you before if there was any series, but there have been a few series called out by people, obviously in the comments. Amaskio J said that he really there was a ton of hype built up. Let's see if I can find it. With Dr. Stone, Attack on Titan, and A Silent Voice. Do you think that any of those three had a lot of hype built up unnecessarily behind them, or do you think that they were hyped properly? Can you actually, before we ask this question, do you think that you can hype something properly?
Oh, for sure. I totally think you can hype something properly. I think the first step really is us as manga tubers. Whenever we hype something, it's kind of in the whole thing. But then after we've kind of started the fire, then everybody wants to add so much fuel to it that it ends up, being this crazy wildfire that nobody can control. And that's what gets people out of it, and, different stuff like that, because it's overhyped. You can't just say, "Oh, this is a good series. I think you should read it." These are points that why I like it or anything. It's, this is a series that I like. You should read it for this and this, and oh, there's a new book out in this, and people just kind of keep going with it.
Absolutely. G, what do you think? Do you think hype can be contained to be proper, or do you think it just builds itself up too much?
I think this is a complicated question, because I think us as individuals are very capable of creating hype or talking about a series that makes people interested in without overdoing it. It's when the community as a large unit decides to also support those things or to discuss them. Whilst it's not a bad thing, of course, it's always nice to have community support. That's when, as a viewer, like if you were just part of the audience, you weren't a manga tuber, if you every single person that you watch videos that you love is telling you the series, needs to be read, it's the best thing ever, it's, one of the greatest series coming out right now, that's when it's quantitative statements like that, greatest of all time, best thing ever, must read. That's when things get problematic, because obviously I hate the phrase greatest of all time, because that's inclusive of the future as well as the past. So you can't do that. We're not fortune tellers. We don't know how things are going to turn out. But I do think that, hype, when it's used or managed properly, is a very useful tool. But again, it is very, very, very easy, especially within this community, for that to quickly just spiral out of control. And a good example, I would say, of positive hype that a lot of very positive word of mouth gained a lot of support, a lot more people started reading it, would be Princess Jellyfish. When that series was initially licensed, Kodansha only licensed the first 12 volumes or the first 6 omnibuses worth of content. It's it's 9 volumes, it's 8 omnibuses plus a single volume, and the series was so popular, it was so many people were saying good things about it, that obviously it became the rest of it got licensed, and now we're getting a box set for it this year. So it's obviously done very, very well for Kodansha, and because it was a series that didn't necessarily have a huge amount of following behind it, insofar as it's a josei series, which previously were very, very unestablished within the English manga community. Tokyo Pop and some of the older publishers had tried previously to put out josei, but the type of stuff they were putting out wasn't ever very popular. It was all of one particular genre, that being office lady romance. Princess Jellyfish really established josei within the English-speaking community now, and now we're getting a lot more of very different and diverse series. And so that, I think, is a very, very good example of positive hype, and how hype can definitely create awareness and create this following for a genre or a particular series that might not have existed anymore. Princess Jellyfish was in a very unique situation in which the anime was very popular. It had gotten a US release previously. It wasn't not everyone had seen the anime, but everyone who did really, really loved it, really wanted the manga. So I think it was a very good first step, especially because Akiko Higashimura is just brilliant. She's hilarious. I love her work. And now we're seeing more of her. We have 2 of her titles coming out, one being Tokyo Tarareba Girls, the other one being Blank Canvas, My So-Called Artist Life, which is coming out this year. We have Descending Stories, which is a completely different genre that just finished in December. We have a lot more josei within, manga being published, which for me is a really good thing. Another example of, I would say, maybe a success in regards to hype would be, again, Kodansha and Vinland Saga, and the push that MangaTube definitely like did in order to get more of that series in print and published, and again licensed. I do think that for me now, if you're hyping Vinland Saga as you have to buy it, you have to support it, because it's not, it's in a very precarious situation right now. I don't think that's the case, and I think that's very it's just not being very truthful. I think Vinland Saga is it's definitely one that's a favorite amongst collectors right now, so it's not really in a precarious situation. It may have been when Kodansha put out the news that, sales aren't great, we're probably not going to continue this unless sales are boosted. But I think we've far reached that point. We don't need to keep harping on it. It gets very, very repetitive, and I think is just falsely untrue nowadays. But again, both of those series are, again, very different series that managed to use hype and fan awareness to create or to allow it to continue publishing and for more and more people to read it. And with the upcoming Vinland Saga anime, I'm sure that more and more people will read that now as well, because they watch the show, they want more, they'll go to it.
And I will 100% agree on Vinland Saga. I think the hype helped bring it over to, printing, which is great. The more series that we get printed in multiple languages, not just the original language, really helps to serve better the creator. Wow, if I could speak, this would be so much easier. But apparently, G has taken all of my words. But I think that hype can absolutely be a good thing and can be used to bring series over. And again, succinct. You said everything that needs to be said, G. I'm just gonna stop calling. I'm gonna stop calling this the live stream Manga CLub and just call it G's thoughts.
G's thoughts.
Wow.
I mean, I totally agree with most of that, though. That's why a lot of the reasons why I'm so much up to date on my pre-orders, because I don't want to get a series based off of the hype or whatever. I always go in, and if it's the art, if it's the description on the back, different stuff like that, it's stuff that makes me want to buy it more, just seeing that over the hype of it and stuff like that. Which, like you said earlier, I really enjoy when SimplyGee actually like comments or says something, because there's more meat to it. There's more stuff. It's not just like with Tokyo Ghoul, like you said, G. It's not just, oh, this is like a reason why you should read it because it's this and this and this. I think there should be more, like there should be a second book on it. Like, this is all the good stuff that's in it, why you should read it. Here's a whole book that I wrote on your comments, to figure out why I enjoyed reading it so you can read it. Going with Vinland Saga, like I got it before I feel like a lot of people started getting it, and then it started getting hyped so much. I put it on my shelf and I put it on the back burner. I didn't want to read it. And I was going to wait until it was like one of the last series I had to read. And Bizarre Individual actually was the person that made me move it farther back up on my list, because he goes, so many people have hyped this up, and he goes, I've read it. I've read through the first 4 volumes or whatever multiple times. He goes, and I hate it. I hate this series. And I was like, what do you hate about it? And he kind of gave me a little description. I go, that's what I needed. You just made me want to jump into reading Vinland Saga because what you hated about it.
I think so. That's basically anti-hype got you to read. The hype built it up, and then anti-hype got to you.
But I think it's a perfect example of how a lot, and I'm not singling out anyone, because I really do love the manga tube community. I think there's some great people in there who have, some great videos, but I do think there's a tendency to talk very, very shallowly about the things that they pick up, whether that's because they haven't read it yet or they just don't really know how to put into words the things they enjoy about a series. So they do default to phrases like, it's the greatest of all time, it's, you know, really wonderful. They don't, you know, that's all well and good, but there's no quantitative reason. People don't mention, you know, that certain characters they like, or, you know, plot elements or genres. It's very, very, you know, shallow, which is fine. You know, it's wonderful, great. But it does mean that a lot of the time people don't really know what a series is about, because a manga tuber might mention the plot with the first volume that they get, but every subsequent volume they never mention it. So if you're, you know, a little, you know, viewer who comes in on your October pickups video and you're getting volume 5 of something, they might have no other frame of reference to what the story is about aside from, oh my god, this is amazing, you have to read it, everyone should know this series and should be buying it, collecting it. Which is why, unfortunately, my videos do get so long, because I do like to share my opinions, not only on the particular volume that I'm talking about, but also the series as a whole. And I just get way, 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 way too into it, and I obviously talk about it a lot. And so it's a, you know, there's a balance between that. You can talk about how you like particular characters, or how you like the writing, or how the pacing is, or how you like this particular setting, and also say, you know, it's, I really enjoy it, it's definitely one of my favorites that's coming out. If you quantify it to yourself, that makes the world of difference, I think. In rather than this blanket statement of it is this thing. You know, we don't have the authority to say whether something is definitively the best or the worst of anything. Within our opinions we are, but you know, it's all just in the phrasing. And so, you know, it's a difficult thing to get right, and I don't begrudge anyone who does just, you know, show off their books, and regardless of whether they've read them or not, it's like, oh, I really like this is really sweet, this is really, you know, funny, this is that, even short things like that, this is really sweet. And then maybe elaborating a little bit on something like that takes you 30 seconds. That would help so much with people's expectations. Because if you're someone who likes, you know, that genre, oh, I really like, you know, horror, and then that person says, you know, it's the greatest, it's one of the best horror coming out right now, they might say, oh yeah, I really like that, but not realizing that the first person, the recommender, is saying that because they really like action horror, where the person who is taking that recommendation might like very slow-paced, atmospheric, character-driven horror. There's very, very different, you know, things within genres and within the spectrum of genre. So it does help to be a little bit more specific when you're talking about, you know, anything, but manga especially, because obviously we are within this community.
100% agree. And you know what? I will call myself out on this one, so you don't have to worry about it, G. I'm guilty myself of making... I went through 50 volumes of manga in a very, very short amount of time. Gosh, it was under 15 minutes. That's ridiculous. But I went through and just talked about, you know, I didn't go into depth, and that's something that I personally feel like I could get better on, explain the series better, and still not try to apply hype. Oh, you know what? I was even more wrong than I thought I was. I did 50 volumes of manga in 8 minutes and 38 seconds. Can't be wrong here.
For shame.
I'm a bad person. I'm a very bad person with messy hair right now. But G, you are absolutely 100% correct. I think that as creators, if we were to create a situation where we are honest and objective when we first start talking about a manga, and then we can throw in our subjective thoughts on it later, by adding precursors such as my favorite series of all time, not just the best series of all time, but my favorite. That way, again, I'm not pushing my views as the world standard, because obviously no one is going to love OG Dragon Ball or other things like that, and they're not going to think it's the greatest series of all time, but it's something that I love. And, but if I was going to do a hype like that, would you agree to, as a creator, talk about the awards that the mangaka has given so you can have a better frame of reference? Do you think that having that frame of reference, so-and-so has been nominated for this award, and this award has won this award and has been published for this long, do you think that that is an objective way to look at it so you can try to give context to why you're looking forward to the story so much, G?
I think it's definitely an element, especially if you value that sort of thing, because there are, awards, not just with manga, but with like literary awards that don't really mean much aside from, they gave a larger donation to this year. But I do think that, exactly, very objective or outside opinion is a good thing. But it's just being more aware that your tastes are your tastes. And especially for me, like my channel has 2,000 something subscribers. I don't expect everyone watching me to have the same tastes, the same opinions as me. So I do try to give a reason as to why someone should try something. And the other thing I always encourage is to try before you buy. That's a big thing for me. But it's okay to not like something that it seems like everyone else is enjoying. It's fine, because that doesn't make you a bad fan. It doesn't make you a bad manga reader. It just means that your tastes at that current moment don't line up with, the majority or the people who you're watching or the people you're talking to. Obviously, as you can see, I'm a young adult woman, so my tastes in general don't really line up hugely with a lot of the MangaTube community, because you're young guys. Some of them are in high school even. So what you value in your media is very, very different from what I value in my media. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy things that other people do enjoy. I enjoy Monster. I enjoy a lot of seinen. I follow a lot of series. I follow a lot of shonen. I have Haikyuu and My Hero Academia, and I loved Hikaru no Go. That's but at the same time, I'm very aware that I do have a lot of people following me who only read shoujo manga, and whether that be high school romance stuff or other things like Yona or Banana Fish. That's very, very separate. And I do think that people, especially young women like myself, do have a little bit of a broader taste, are a little bit more adventurous and will try things. I think it's not unquestioned when a girl likes Berserk, but it is sort of questioned when a guy goes on about his Sailor Moon collection. There's a bit of hypocrisy there. But it's you have to just be aware that as content creators and as having this large audience, whether it's 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, that not everyone's going to agree with you on everything. And as a viewer, especially if you do follow a whole bunch of MangaTube people, that you're going to get conflicting opinions every so often. And generally, I'm the conflicting opinion, unfortunately. But I don't mind. I don't care if people love series that I really don't give, two flips about. It's fine, because that doesn't affect me or my enjoyment or my collection or how I read things, how I buy things. And that's what you need to value in yourself. Even if you're not making videos, if you're just reading manga or amassing a collection, is to do it for you. Because if you're buying things just because everyone's saying they're popular, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be stuck in the cycle of, I have to get the new volume for this. You don't even necessarily like it. If you read it, you're never going to read it again. Attack on Titan, as you mentioned previously, was one of those series for me. I do keep up to date with that manga, but I keep up to date with it via Crunchyroll, which is, of course, like legal online manga chapters, simulpubbed. And that's because I know I'm never going to go back to Attack on Titan. I'm not going to read that again. It was the same with Magi. I follow that via Kindle now because it's just not something that I can see myself in a year's time, 5 years time, going back to and being like, yeah, I really want to sit down and read Magi again. And that's not saying that Magi's bad. I don't think it's bad. I'm definitely enjoying it. But it's not something that really, I want to keep around because it's just not, it's not high priority for me. And I've read it once. I'm happy. I don't have to read it again. And it's not something like, I don't know, half of any of the things that you can see behind me where I do go back to it a lot, whether that be Fullmetal Alchemist, whether that be Skip Beat, whether that be any of those. I don't know, Golden Kamuy. I do go back and reread those. Nabari no Oh, I only got that series last year. I've reread it 3 times already. And those are the things that I want to have within my collection because for me, that's how I value myself. And some people do value their collection with the size of what they have. There's this push that larger collections are better. And with this hype, that just never stops. There's always something new to come out. There's always a new great series being released. And 2019 is a big year for that. There are so many debuts this year, so many things that I'm excited for, but you get tired. You're like, man, there's like 27 new debuting series, and you can't be emphatically excited for every single one realistically.
No.
Like, you can enjoy all of them, you can love a good percentage of them, but you can't dedicate yourself and totally push yourself into that with everything because it's not realistic.
I think you just hurt Toaster Cat's feelings by saying that you wouldn't go back and reread Magi. Oh boy, that's gonna be contentious. Right? I'm probably gonna get a message just saying, Brian, man, you gotta, Lohili, man, you gotta. Oh, she can't be back on. She doesn't like Magi.
People have known my stand on that for a long time. I'm not here just to buy books, I promise. I'm here to enjoy what I'm buying. Absolutely,
and I agree with you. I think that if I can distill your point just a little bit more fine, is for your collection, you get series that you want to read again and again. You want to skip over the hype, build your series up, build your collection up, and have things that you're going to pick up 3, 4, 10, 20 more times. I mean, solid examples of that. The reason why I so emphatically talk about iShield 21, Hajime no Ippo, One Piece, the series that I mention frequently, I've gone back and reread at least 4 times. Do you know how many chapters are in Hajime no Ippo? There are 1,251 legally translated chapters, and I've reread that series. I'm on my 5th read through total. That's a lot of time. And again, not to hype that one up too much. Ugh, my bad. But I think, what's up?
What is this? The second time you brought it up this video?
At least the second time. Oh, I thought I had hair in my mouth there for a second. I didn't. My bad. But I think that as collectors, we even end up hyping series up. We're like, oh man, I love this series. I'm going to reread it like 10, 20, 40, 100 more times. I'm going to show it to my children. I'm going to show it to my friends. I'm going to get a back tattoo of all of the spines across my spine. And you're like, this is going to be amazing. I'm in love with it. And then suddenly you get to the very end. Hey, Smokey, my cat, by the way. And you're like, man, that series was not great. I've made so many wrong life decisions. I should just sell it off right now. And I've definitely done that before. Like Rurouni Kenshin, I have 27 volumes of it sitting on my shelf, and I've read 1 volume of it. I've owned it for months. Didn't listen to it. I listened to the hype, and your childhood. I listened to the hype, and Graves' childhood ruined extra money that I had. Though it did give me a really good talking point about how much you should really think about the series that you're buying. And sorry if you like Rurouni Kenshin.
I can't believe you. Crushing my dreams. Oh, but yeah, I mean, on those points, I mean, I totally agree with all of that. I think it's funny, especially because for me, and it's really weird. Since I started reading manga, I've never forgotten anything out of it. So I've never went back to reread a series except for my all-time favorite, Suikoden. That's been the only one I've read multiple times. But I think it's funny, touching on what Guy said. It's really funny how I have such a big collection, and then I have people that don't think there's certain things in there, or that there won't be certain things on my list. Last year when I did my top 100 and I had My Love Story on there, I remember there were so many people like, "You're a guy. You shouldn't be reading My Love Story. That's a shoujo." I'm like, so it's just kind of our communities where you can kind of gap all that stuff, because I know some people were like, "Oh, you've read that? What's your opinion on it? As a guy, what's your opinion?" And I gave them my honest opinion, and they're like, "I'm gonna try it out." So it's kind of bridging that gap, knowing the series that you read, what you get into.
Absolutely. I mean, I am. I'm big enough to admit that I've read certain series and not talked about that I've read them, because they are usually not associated with guys.
Do tell.
Well, Ranma Half, 100% love that series. Love it to death. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. But if I've talked to other guys who've read the series, like, they're like, "Why would you read that? It's a love story." I was like, with action and comedy and slapstick comedy, it's a great series.
It's written for boys.
But that's the thing, is they
That's
don't
like
realize
the argument with Inuyasha we talked about before.
Oh, we have Inuyasha was Let me see if I can pull out my list. A Silent Voice. I read A Silent Voice genuinely years ago, like a really long time ago, and I think it's brilliant. I absolutely 100% adore that. And when that came out, I was so excited. I still haven't seen the movie of it yet, just because I don't have time usually to watch movies right now. But brilliant. I loved it. And some of these things, we could dive into it even deeper later. Some of these are perceived to have been written for girls, even though they're specifically written for guys, like Inuyasha, like Ranma Half. But they've been hyped up.
Silent Voice.
Again,
all three of those.
Right? See, this is why you're here. I told you, you call me out on all this stuff. Yeah, but reading through all my stuff, it's just heavier. I 100% am super heavy into shonen and seinen. I've technically Code Geass is labeled as a shoujo, and so is Immortal Rain. 07 Ghost is a josei. That's basically it, other than manhwa. I have also read Half Prince, which is a manhwa, but it was also a gender bending. That was a strange series, and I never actually got to the end of it because I couldn't find the end. Didn't hate it though. But do you think that hype can change the narrative of a story?
Absolutely. Especially depending on who's talking about it. Because, again, I say this because I am a very large, component of the manga community. I do have a lot of subscribers, and I'm endlessly thankful for them. But a lot of people regard, YouTubers like Fatal Ferret and Insidious Swede as sort of like the guys. They're definitely, everyone watches them. So many people have been inspired by them to make their own videos that I think there's an element of what they say has a lot of value within the community, because they have so many followers and subscribers. And it's, and I hate to bring like gender and sex into this, but as young guys, they appeal to a lot of people, and their tastes are very general and broad, and obviously appeal to a lot of guys their age and younger. So because they seem like cooler versions of their viewers' future selves. You know, everyone wants to be them. Everyone wants to have the 5,000, you know, manga in their collection. And it's a, you know, it seems cool. When you're 15, that seems like the coolest thing you could ever do. As obviously, like myself, again, as I'm a girl, Laura from Manga Hoarder and her sister Jen, and Whimsical Pictures, who doesn't really do videos that much anymore after, because she works in Japan currently. Whimsical Pictures wasn't to the same level, but Manga Hoarder has over 1,000 subs, and I think everybody knows her. She's definitely very well established, and you know, I love her. She's amazing, and she knows a lot more about certain topics than I will ever know. So I do deeply respect her videos and her opinions. And you know, you do see people on the occasion say, oh, you know, I watched your video and I tried this thing and I really, really liked it. But for a certain subsect of fans, and I want to say like the high school boy subsect of fans, it's always going to be a harder sell for them to take recommendations from a girl, whether they be a high schooler or whether they be, you know, 20 odd years old. They're always going to think, well, that's not for me, or I just don't want to, you know, that doesn't sound like something I like. Even if those women or those girls are talking about series that are written for seinen or shonen magazines, or have very, very general, broad appeal, it is so much harder, I think, for our opinions to be valued by some people. And again, not calling out anyone, and I think it's a fairly natural way of the world, unfortunately, but it's definitely something that's there. You know, it's definitely something. When I was starting my channel, when I was initially growing, I did follow a lot more shonen series. As I said, I had Attack on Titan, I had Magi, I had things like Tagami Bachi. I had a whole lot of stuff that was coming out that's very popular shonen, and thus I had a lot of young guys in my comments who are saying, oh, why don't you have Dragon Ball? Why don't you have this series? Have you read this? You need to read Rurouni Kenshin. You need to read Dragon Ball. And for me, you need to read Naruto or Bleach. For me, I don't really have an interest. I like to read Dragon Ball. I will admit that. I do plan to get to it at some point, and One Piece, but they're not the highest priority for me. And because I haven't seen those or read them, or I don't own them, I don't show them off in my collection, I don't tout them as the best thing ever made, it automatically makes people feel like I don't know what I'm talking about, which is sad, because I hate to think that, because as I said, I do have 2,300 subscribers who do put up with my hour-long videos, and I adore them and leave me absolutely the longest comments, and I read every single one of them. And it's interesting to see the people who do continually comment on my videos compared to the number of comments and the type of comments I get when I post like a manga collection video, because obviously more people than just my subscribers see those. A lot of people search for that sort of thing, and so you gotta get a lot of people just like, oh, I'm interested in seeing what is in a large collection, especially when you have, you know, a larger collection like mine. So it's interesting because I get the two sides. There's one side that is like, where's Naruto? Where's, you know, Rurouni Kenshin? Where's Attack on Titan? You know, your collection doesn't have that. It's crap. And then I have, on the other hand, people are like, your collection is full of stuff I've never heard of, and I want to read all of them. Please tell me more. It's really interesting. And, it's difficult, and it's something that not everyone has to deal with, obviously. And I don't want to, in saying that, I'd never want to put off people, making comments or making videos, because I definitely love seeing more creators within this community. But it is something that you do notice over time. And, it's just part of what goes on here, unfortunately. So.
Seriously, you keep taking all the good words. You're using up all of the words. She's using up all the words, Graves. She's...
Well, like the funny thing is, the thing that I have going on right now in the community that everybody is doing here and there, odds and ends. I mean, I feel like it is a harder pill for people to swallow, with people like Insidious Swede and Fatal Ferret, because it's kind of like they don't want to include the rest of the community, because we've talked about it before, of them kind of feeling like you're taking away their subscribers, even though it's not like that. Everybody can be subscribed to everyone.
I would disagree with that sentiment, only because I've talked to them in many years ago now, when back in the last wave of creators, and I think they get bombarded by people who do regard them as like, oh, you're the best, you have so many subscribers. There's a lot of ass kissing, unfortunately, sometimes in the community, and it just gets off-putting, and you don't want to interact with those types of people. And it's all cyclical. New people come and go all the time, and I think it's a smart move, especially when you have 10,000 subscribers, 5,000 subscribers, to be able to step back and sort of live your real life and realize that YouTube is not everything. I certainly do that, but there's a balance, and I don't know what's going on in their lives. They both seem like really busy guys. They have university. I know Fatal Ferret bought a house last year or the year before, so they've had things, and I don't think they consciously are like, nah, I don't want to interact with anyone because there's a shortage on subscribers and you're stealing things away from me. I don't really think they care all that much. But that's just my perspective in actually speaking to them and observing what had happened in 2016, 2017. So yeah, not to devalue your point, Jim Graves, that's just my perspective on it. So continue. Sorry for interrupting.
I mean that was great. Sometimes I gotta throw out some fake questions to see if you're still awake. Especially Lohali. Sometimes I feel like he falls asleep on me.
Hey, I never fall asleep on you. Don't you worry.
But yeah, I mean, we're doing the whole community challenge thing to kind of spotlight different people in the community for that stuff. There's even people that are new that are coming out that a bunch of our other manga tubers don't even know about, and I'll do a video on them because they've talked to me or whatever. But continuing, the hype of what people like and stuff like that.
The hype always gets us. And you just hyped up Fatal Ferret and Insidious Swede. You got called. Right. But now I'm gonna hype you up. But
you're gonna hype me up. Oh no.
So, G, is there anything that you feel like we're missing discussing right now? Like I'm not seeing, just because obviously I have a different perspective than you. Is there something that I haven't asked you yet or I haven't brought up yet that you think is an important thing to talk about when it comes to hype?
I would say we've covered pretty much everything, or especially something that isn't in this sort of setting of discussion. I would say that it might be a point to discuss fans and the idea of this, like, almost mob mentality of having to protect a series against perceived slights. and differing opinions, because that happens a lot. I'm sure all of us have come across it. Because that is another thing that is definitely, very prevalent. Because of, when you read a series, when you're a fan of a series, you're emotionally attached to that series. You love it. You don't want anything bad to be said about it. And so you do get very invested in it. And some people do get very invested in how everyone feels about that series. So if I, just by saying, oh, I really dislike Bakuman, I could say I hate Bakuman. People will automatically, get up in arms and have to defend this manga's honor, even though it's not a real thing. Like, it's a form of media. It's a story. Bakuman doesn't feel bad about itself because I don't like it. You don't have to protect it. It's a very, very curious thing to see. And of course, I do it. I get, a little bit hurt when someone's like, yeah, I read that series you liked and I thought it was shit. But, you have to realize that, again, not everyone's going to have your same opinion. And there's no need to, I guess, white knight a series, because what are you going to gain from that? The series, the creator isn't going to personally thank you, shake your hand and say thank you for protecting the honor of my manga that, this other person just thought the character design wasn't great, or thought the pacing was pretty terrible, or thought it made no sense. You're not going to get that. And fans, obviously the word is derived from fanatic. And I'm not talking about those people who are just so obsessive with it, but because those do exist as well. But I think people need to realize that it's entertainment. It's a form of entertainment. And regardless of whether it changed your life or not, or totally changed your perspective, as a good media should, it's wonderful and a fantastic thing, but you don't get to dictate other people's opinions and other people's experiences and lives. It happened to me when I was discussing the Bakemonogatari light novels. And I'm not a huge harem fan, but I enjoy the Monogatari series for what it is, all of its flaws and everything, the gratuitous, fan service. And I mentioned that in my review, or in my discussion about it, because it isn't something that everyone's going to be comfortable about. I just said, with this character, he's definitely very perverted. There's a lot of fan service, a lot of gratuitous fan service, and obviously it's written, it's not art, and so not everyone sees it the same way. But I mention it because even if I have no problem with it, doesn't mean nobody has a problem with it. And so I had people in my comments saying, why are you reading this if you think it's terrible, and that you don't enjoy this and that and whatever else? And I do enjoy it. Like, I didn't say I didn't enjoy it, but I think it's fair to warn people about something if they have a problem with it. I do the same thing with regards to like BL, yaoi, and sexual assaults. I always mention it because it might not be a problem that I have with reading. Generally it is. Generally I don't like reading it, but there's different levels of it, and people have different levels of, being able to handle that. And I don't want to say, oh, this is great, everyone should read this, if you do have an issue with reading certain themes or reading certain situations. So yeah, I think even regardless of hype, fans can they hype themselves up, and they don't realize that sort of impact that can have on a larger community and a larger group of people when we are having a adult discussion about these titles. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you want a adult discussion that has some well formulated and well thought out points. But yeah, so that's sort of my perspective of fans, and I don't know if you guys have run across anything like that. I'm sure you have, because it's not unique to manga fandom, but I think definitely it is very steeped in nostalgia. I think a lot of people get very offended if you don't like their first manga or their favorite manga from childhood as well. So it's a curious one. What would you say to that? Would you add anything to that?
Raves, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
You go first. I actually have to go grab something real quick.
Okay. So for me, I am a huge Harry Potter head. Like, I love Harry Potter to death. I have 2 copies of the books. I have the OG printings of Quidditch Through the Ages and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. But an example, like you said, fans overhype the series. Perfect example is with Harry Potter, which is why I brought it up. It's a way that you keep telling yourself that the series is perfect, the series is flawless, and suddenly, as you mentioned really early on, was you get this mob mentality behind series, behind manga authors. Like, you know, you have, man, I'm blanking on the name right now, but how am I blanking on this? My favorite author, and I'm blanking on his name. Monster. This is what, don't get sick, people. Urasawa. I love Urasawa. But people, and I'm one of them, who will hype up the series and the author a lot. And it creates this echo chamber, really, where your opinion is the only opinion, and that opinion is the right fact. You know, it's where it's where an opinion becomes, you know, fact, and there's no room for discussion on it. That I think hype 100% works against a series, and I think it works against a fandom. You know, if you were to go on to the manga subreddit, if you were to go onto the One Piece subreddit, you know, it's a vicious cycle of hype, and then suddenly something unexpected happens, and then they're de-hyping themselves. They create an echo chamber of, well, this chapter was amazing because of X, and we always expect Oda to do the unexpected. So when he does something that's unexpected, but it's not the way that they like, it suddenly creates an echo chamber of, well, I hope he doesn't do it this way because I'd be really disappointed. Even though these are the same people, if you go back through their comments, he did something completely different before, you know, that was unexpected and did it in a different way. And they were like, oh, that was amazing, and I want him to do stuff like this again. It's this echo chamber effect. And I've echo chambered a few times. Harry Potter, when I was younger, I would hype it up. Monster 20th Century Boys, Dragon Ball. I don't think everyone should read the most popular series. I think that there is a certain point where we all need to form our own opinions, our own subjective opinions, by taking a look at objective facts. No, it's there has to be a balance between the two. And I think, again, all your points are great, making me look terrible over here. I feel like you predicted the future of what my questions were going to be and then just wrote out like a whole thesis, like a doctoral thesis on this. I'm not entirely sure.
You know never to invite me again.
Oh no, I'm going to do this again.
Everything.
I'm going to do this again and again. That way I can keep learning. And that's the thing, is I think opening our minds can help stem hype. I think that opening up our opinions to change can help hype kind of calm down. And I think that as a MangaTuber community, we need to take a really good look at ourselves and how we hype things up. We joke about things that we hype all the time, which is fine. But I think and again, this is an opinion, so I could be very well and wrong. But I think to grow even larger as a manga, you know, I don't even want to say MangaTuber community. We're a manga collector community, more so than anything right now. And I think as a manga collector community, we need to kind of look a little bit behind the veil and look at ourselves and say, hey, you know, does this series really deserve all the hype? You know, why am I telling people that this is a requirement? Like, before you start to give your opinions out on things, you should ask yourself, why am I giving this opinion? You know, is it because I love the series so much? Is it because the community loves the series? You know, what can you do to help combat the hype in an honest, respectful way to both the series that you are reading, to your audience, and to yourself. Hopefully that wasn't too rambly.
No, absolutely not.
But yeah, I think an elimination of the echo chambers that we tend to create will help hype a little bit and will help keep fans more reasonably grounded in their expectations of what's to come from manga. So I think I'm going to repeat myself, but echo chambers are bad. Stop doing them. Graves, you got anything?
Oh man, yeah. I think when you take your favorite series that you should be able to basically go down a list too at the same point and say all the bad points about it. You know, if you ever do your whole thing of how much you hate Death Note, you know, I totally want you to do the opposite and be like, this is all the good stuff that's in Death Note or whatever, because then people understand like this is, you get down to the nitty gritty. It's your favorite one, but you know that you don't always have to defend it or anything too. You're able to basically call out its flaws and all stuff and not have it so hyped up. You know.
Absolutely.
Another thing I really like is relatability. If you're talking about a series and you can relate it to another series that is out there that maybe I've read, maybe I didn't read this one you're talking about, I read another one. You, with the relatability, could be able to turn around and get somebody into it or give them another opinion for another future series to read, you know. Just anything.
And I think relatability is a huge thing. I don't want to cut this one short, but I'm slowly starting to fade. The flu is catching up with me, everybody. I apologize.
We're Smokey.
He is lying on my table to the left of me, just sitting there staring at me creepily.
He hasn't made an appearance yet, though.
Oh, no, he did. He did, actually.
He did.
Right across here.
I missed him.
You missed the smoke. You missed the nightly Smokey appearance. He did his appearance. But this was an absolutely phenomenal discussion, and G, thank you so much for coming on. Again, you stole the show. You were the superstar this time. Definitely not Graves. I'm sorry, Graves. I'm taking back your MVP status.
No, I really have to thank you guys for obviously inviting me and being, you know, able to accommodate me where so much, because it is nice to have this sort of proper discussion. I think discussion in person or as close to it is the best way that we can, you know, actually talk about some of these subjects, whether it be, you know, hype and fans that we did today, or, you know, other issues within the community that we brushed on. Because it's nice. When you have an actual other person to talk off of or to bounce ideas from, because it's not, you're getting various perspectives, and I'm really happy that I had the opportunity to be a guest tonight. It was fun and very exciting, and I thank you for obviously choosing me and being so gracious in your choosing me for this first, I guess, guest, at least in regards to forums and that sort of thing. So
yeah, you are our first official forum guest that had proper things filled out. Everything else was just seat of the pants. Like, I think the best one was last week with Mike. He didn't know that he was going to be on until an hour before Graves, or like the day before, because we forgot to ask him.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh no.
It was good. Graves, if you want to do your normal sign out.
Hey guys, go subscribe to our channels, SimplyGee, Lohali, Jim Graves, and we will catch you guys later. Stay tuned. A lot of good videos coming down the works from all three of us, and I hope you guys will tune in, subscribe, hit that button, everything, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.
All right, G, if you would tell people where they can obviously find you, because everyone here knows you, but what you're doing, other things like that. Just give us quick rundown of what we can do to help you out in the future.
Well, obviously you can find me at my YouTube channel, that being SimplyGee. The G is GEE. I should mention. I also have my Twitter, which is CollectingG, and that's always linked in my description as well. But again, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you, watchers, so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next of my videos. Bye till then.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the live stream Manga Club. This wouldn't be possible without each and every single one of you commenting, sharing, liking, do whatever you do. Thank you so much for Graves, as always, for being an amazing co-host. And G, you 100% are an amazingly, well-spoken, well-thought individual. And it would be, if you feel up to it in the future and you can stand being on another live stream with people from the United States, we apologize.
I'm also from the United States, so don't get that wrong.
Wait, what? We're gonna have... Oh, man, I'm being my mind is being blown right now. Oh, man. See, assumptions. I hyped it up in my head, guys, and I made an assumption.
By the headband.
Yeah, and actually, we have some pretty cool things, but G, thank you so much for coming on and being, one, our first official guest, and two, our first female guest. Absolutely wonderful, and I cannot wait to have more of these discussions with you in the future if you are absolutely willing to be on here. And then, just so everyone knows, on September 16th, we are going to be having our next live stream with Yomu Yokai at 9 o'clock in the morning Central Pacific Time here in the United States, and we're going to be talking about dropped series. So stay tuned for that. Be excited, and for everyone new and old, welcome and welcome back. It's your boy Lohali, signing out.